I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died.
She died in my mind even though I didn't kill her. The internet went crazy when it was revealed that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body had been found decaying inside David's Tesla. Everyone was certain he was guilty overnight. But a few weeks later, federal detectives' new evidence cleared him of the murder allegation. As soon as they said the name, everything changed. Despite the abundance of timelines and conjectures on social media, the real facts presented an entirely different image. It all started on September 8, 2025. An unpleasant smell emanating from a black 2023 Tesla Model 3 was detected by Hollywood tow staff. The automobile had been parked for weeks in an affluent Hollywood Hills neighborhood where cars don't stay. The lab found a 71-pound plastic bag in the front trunk, or frunk, of the Tesla. The cops' parts were coiled up and were decomposing within. They found things that appalled the city. The body was initially unidentifiable. It took officials 9 days to identify the victim as Celeste Rivas Hernandez using dental records, DNA, and a small tattoo on her finger. The problem is that when the Tesla was registered to David, a 20-year-old artist, he wasn't even in Los Angeles. He was on a well-recorded world tour, performing all throughout North America, and his locations were confirmed by witnesses, film, and receipts. Celeste's story contained upsetting information. She had a history of running away from home, and in April 2024, when she was 13 years old, she was reported missing. Deputies visited her family's house 11 times in a single year to check for strange activity or disturbances. Friends described her as a despondent adolescent who was dealing with emotional turmoil. But the internet disregarded the details and, based only on David's statements, tattoos, and pictures, found him guilty without a trial. The account given by the police was different. Lab Captain Scott Williams stated, "We know Celeste died, and someone put her body in David Burke's Tesla." He did admit, though, that they could not yet confirm criminal responsibility beyond a simple case of hiding a body. David cooperated well with the police and was never labeled as a suspect or taken into custody, despite weeks of online outrage. Forensic science advanced the case. Initial autopsy results showed a drug overdose rather than a homicide, according to specialist Dr. Amy Santoro. The most likely cause of death was unintentional tragedy because there were no obvious signs of violence or injuries. Who put Celeste in that automobile is still the real mystery. This would clear David of any homicide allegations if verified. Investigators searched David's rented house in the Hollywood Hills on September 17 and seized electronics while looking for evidence in the drains. A few days later, his supervisor abruptly ended the lease, which fueled online rumors. In reality, though, living in a raided home under public spotlight was challenging for everyone, guilty or innocent. The worst truth remains: Celeste's body was too disintegrated to offer conclusive evidence. When violent behavior is absent, the overdose explanation wins over, but there are still unresolved issues. When she was dying, who was with her? And who had access to David's Tesla when he was on tour? Celeste's death is still unknown even though the evidence suggests she was innocent.
A situation that you actually caught us up on last week involving the pop singer David and Celeste Rivas, who's this 17-year-old, and her body was discovered, if memory serves, in the trunk of a Tesla that was found in a rental car lot in California.
Yeah, and even more tragic, she was 15 now, and when she went missing, she was only 13 years old. She went missing in April of 2024.
The fact that Celeste's body exhibits no symptoms of trauma is crucial. Since blunt force fractures cause fractures, strangulation leaves impressions, and gunshots and stabbings produce identifiable wounds, police usually find obvious signs of homicide. But there was none of that here. This and the coroner's choice to delay determining the cause of death until toxicology results were and suggested a scenario very different from the horrific murder that many had previously anticipated. Understanding the scenario requires knowledge about Celeste's past. Police records show that officers visited her family's house more than 10 times in a little more than a year to deal with minor problems and disruptions. According to her neighbors, she had escaped at least 3 times in 2024, leaving messages or occasionally being seen near odd cars. Her ex-boyfriend described ongoing family disputes. In such an environment, for a child, fleeing often meant going into dangerous situations, including places where drugs or dangerous people might be present, without necessarily signaling a deliberate act of violence. There was also speculation about whether her departure was related to David's management. Her family reportedly emailed his crew after she disappeared in 2024, and the next day she returned. However, David's manager denied ever receiving the texts, so the truth is unclear. This just served to highlight the ease with which rumors and facts can be muddled. Meanwhile, David's songs became more well-known. His well-known song Romantic Homicide has references to death and numbness, which many people on the internet started interpreting as hints. In an interview, David stressed that the song was a metaphor about loss rather than a real confession. Nevertheless, there was speculation regarding the subjects and time. One of the most challenging tasks was separating fact from rumor. Because of Celeste's past, the lack of solid proof, and the unresolved toxicological results, the mystery of what truly happened remained unsolved.
Inspired the hook, "In the back of my mind you died," is kind of like the storytelling aspect of the lyrics that came before it, in a way that it builds up to the big moment where she died in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear. I've seen people online take different meanings and interpretations from that one part of the song where it's like it's their past selves that's dying. And they're not even crying about it because they're evolved, they become better people, or have killed addictions and other different stuff like that. So I think it's very powerful.
The song was released in July 2022, long before Celeste was lost. Rumors that it had fallen on her birthday were quickly disproved, but they continued to circulate on social media as if they were proof of something darker. Whatever the truth, the effect on David was immediate and terrible. He was forced to postpone the rest of his tour, which included engagements in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. He ceased collaborating with major brands like Hollister and Crocs, and streaming services began to less actively promote his music. The reactionary wave significantly changed his career. But not everyone was against him. By exploring the issue further, online personalities like Jason Lewin and Elwig offered a more objective viewpoint on the crisis as it was unfolding.
Reports have emerged that D4 paused his ongoing tour after a woman's body later identified as a 15-year-old was found inside a Tesla registered to his name. TMZ reported that the victim and the singer shared the same tattoo, Shush, on the same finger.
He was obsessed with the victim, wrote songs about her, had matching tattoos and tons of pics together. She was still a
Even David's obstacles got difficult. Jason, one of the first streamers to publicly state that David was not a murderer, faced criticism when additional circumstantial evidence emerged. Another streamer, Rain, later backed up Jason's initial response, saying that while it's common to support a friend before hard evidence comes to light, it would be more difficult to continue defending them once hard evidence has been discovered. Meanwhile, the Tesla itself was the main attraction. It seemed an odd choice for criminal conduct, with its extensive data logs and Sentry mode cameras. Commentators pointed out that if David had been guilty, it would have been foolish for him to utilize a car like that because investigators could easily gather evidence from the car systems. By late September and early October 2025, the case began to shift away from the story of planned murder. An increasing amount of evidence pointed to a horrible confluence of drug use, youth susceptibility, and poor decision-making rather than deliberate murder. Forensic scientist Amy Santoro said investigators thought Celeste died from a drug overdose. David most likely wouldn't face homicide charges if toxicology proved this because her death might have been an accident or self-harm, which would be in line with her history of risky behavior. This argument was reinforced by her multiple escapes, the autopsy's lack of injuries, and the difficulty of establishing the cause of death from decomposing remains. The Tesla itself posed additional queries. David had a number of vehicles throughout his confirmed North American tour, one of which had been left unattended for weeks. Decomposition indicates that Celeste died a few weeks before she was found, around the time he left Los Angeles. Investigators questioned if her body had been placed inside the automobile during that time by someone else or she had entered it voluntarily. Her body had obviously been concealed in David's Tesla, but Lab Captain Scott Williams later explained that it was not clear whether criminal guilt went beyond that. Another surprise is that Celeste was photographed at her parents' home on September 8, 2024, a year before her death was found. This implied that she had occasionally returned home, most likely for her 14th birthday, which further complicated the timing of her disappearances and illustrated how precarious her situation was. But
Was she still really missing without a trace all that time? The other day, TMZ acquired some video of Celeste in her parents' backyard, and it was dated September 8th, 2024. That date is so significant for a couple of reasons. First off, it's 5 months after she supposedly disappeared for the last time. And what's more sad is that it is 1 day after her 14th birthday, which makes me think maybe Celeste came home for her birthday. Her birthday's on September 7th. This video's on September 8th.
According to Ashley Banfield's reporting on Drop Dead Serious, Celeste was called to her family's home 11 times in less than a year, including 3 different visits on March 19, 2024, the day she was captured on liquor store cameras sprinting down the street. These specifics paint a picture of a troubled teenager who alternates between going missing and coming back, often engaging the police in her turbulent home life. Despite initial reports that her parents may have departed, Records News Nation was able to get confirmed that both of them have been in the nation legally since 2001. Neighbors remembered custody disputes, but there was no sign of a divorce. The final result is a portrayal of a distressed family, a little girl attempting to escape, and a tragedy that may have been caused by persistent problems rather than a single murder. This fact does not alleviate the pain. It is only made worse by the fact that Celeste's income exceeded the instability she experienced. There are major legal repercussions for the overdosing argument. Without homicide evidence, prosecutors would have a very hard time charging someone with murder. Even though it is against the law to hide a body, it is much harder to determine who put her in the Tesla, especially since other persons might have had access to it. David has claimed, via his lawyers, that he was not aware of her passing and was fully cooperative with the authorities. Separate grooming allegations that have emerged, fueled by alleged Discord texts from 2022, have not been confirmed by investigators. No formal charges of rape or exploitation have been made, but California law would apply if proof of a relationship emerged. Even without accusations, the impact has been devastating for David. His tour was cancelled, brand talks failed, and his reputation took a hit that would follow him for the rest of his career. Legal experts like Alexander Kazarian say that despite allegations, there is no evidence linking him to a crime, and the lab has cautiously avoided calling him a suspect. Celeste's death remains terrible because she was a 15-year-old girl who was found abandoned in a car after suffering from instability. Her family mourns and raises money for her funeral, while her town observes vigils in her honor as a child who deserves far better. The story that comes to light is much more complicated than the widely shared murder story that went viral online, while toxicology reports and the verdicts of the prosecution are still pending. Forensic evidence, dates, and investigation findings all suggest uncertainty rather than certainty. Dr. Amy Santoro has warned that any accusations, if they are brought forward, would appear very different from what the public initially expected. The broader lesson is sobering. In a time of instant speculation and viral outrage, we must avoid passing judgment on individuals in the court of public opinion. The difference between accidental overdose and intentional murder is not just a detail. It radically changes the meaning of the tragedy, shifting it from the failure of a single criminal to the failure of a wider system.